really excited to be here with you all today, really to share our vision for geodesign and how it's being used to envision neighborhoods like your own. And to help articulate this, we've also invited two amazing guests that can show you some incredible work. So this story today will have profound impact on policymakers and planning design firms alike. As the title suggests, geodesign is a new way of thinking about the design process, taking site inventory and analysis to a whole new level. It's an approach to problem solving that's deeply rooted in the design profession and supported by geospatial technology. So geodesign is all about discovering patterns that are meaningful across the design process. And by connecting key performance indicators, we can start to drive evidence-based designs. And by sharing information seamlessly, we can keep field workers and project leaders informed and up to date. And today's presentation is all about the application of tools to get the job done efficiently and done right. The design of resilient communities begins with location awareness, and ArcGIS is a mapping platform that enables access to meaningful information across your organization. We can start to manage and analyze important trends to drive decision-making, design and visualize scenarios and compare alternatives, engage with key stakeholders and the public through the browser, through mobile devices. ArcGIS can power some amazing applications for an entire range of users. ArcGIS can also integrate all different types of data streams, whether it's spreadsheet data, social media feeds, or analytics to do with traffic or even the climate of your next project location. What we're really offering is the ability to integrate and really support your work with these information streams. With a platform approach, we can start to focus on the overall project outcomes, reduce operational costs, and improve production pipelines. And our two amazing guests today will dive deeper and show you how they take advantage of this type of technology. And today we'll be discussing the individual applications that make up this platform, like ArcGIS Pro, GeoPlanner, City Engine, and the capabilities that ultimately support and add value to your current workflows. This technology supports geodesign. It's a framework for planning and design, really for the 21st century. It's a methodology for helping us work across scales and disciplines to find design solutions that improve lives and the environment. Esri technology combines the scientific power of geographic data with smart 3D modeling to facilitate not only data visualization, scenario impact simulations, but also storytelling. We can improve and strengthen the way you're able to manage projects from the data to the design to the publishing. In the first group here, we can ask, what do we need to know about the region or neighborhood in which we're working? The second group here is where you really start to work within that existing conditions. Using iterative design methods, multiple stakeholder inputs, geospatial modeling in order to create holistic designs. This process is really about exploring issues from a transdisciplinary perspective to resolve conflicts that might happen with differing points of view. So you're familiar with the first two here, but the third step here is really what makes it scalable. By telling the story, the big picture, and enabling stakeholders by providing them this story, we can start to amplify the work of the planners and designers. So geodesign is all about finding solutions. When you're using and sharing data, especially in real time, your organization's work is more productive. Departments, resources, and people are better aligned and more efficient because they have access to information and can start to act on it and design with it. You become more productive, efficient, transparent, and ultimately more collaborative. And geodesign is forward-thinking. If you're like most design firms joining our webinar today, you share a common trait. You're fighting to find out what that distinguishing factor is that sets you apart from everyone else. This hasn't gotten easier over the past couple of years. And choosing the right software is really make or break. A successful design practice needs more than just years of experience, a strong portfolio to really grow the project workload. So we're looking for ways technology can help work smarter instead of harder. And it's also about learning from others to adopt best practices. And we believe Esri has the tools and technology that can help you do that. And before we hand it over to our first guest today, I'd like to pose our first interactive question. So that should appear on the screen. And go ahead and submit your answer. Do you consider 3D software an essential part within your organizational strategy? We'll go ahead and tally the numbers in real time and share those results back with you. So take a moment. And
yeah, so everyone's voting carefully.
Yep.
And let's share those out. It looks like 52% say yes.
Okay, great. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to Devin Lavigne. He's actually the principal and co-founder of Houseal Lavigne Associates. And he's going to speak to you a little bit about his project work with some of these tools. Over to you, Devin.
Great. Thank you, Brooks. So Houseal Lavigne Associates, we're an urban planning consulting firm specializing in community planning, urban design, and economic development. We established ourselves in 2004. And in the last decade, we've grown from a small firm in suburban Chicago to a national practice working on all types of planning assignments throughout the United States, large and small. Last year, our firm received the prestigious Planning Excellence Award from the American Planning Association for Emerging Planning and Design Firm. And in receiving the award, the APA recognized us for our innovative approach to outreach and also for our firm's graphic approach to planning and how we integrate graphics and illustrations and tell compelling stories and simplify our plans with the photos, illustrations, and maps and graphics. Our philosophy as it relates to graphics and visualization and planning is pretty simple. We know that plans have become visible to a broader audience. It used to be a plan document might sit in the back room of City Hall, but now they're up on the internet for everyone to see as PDFs. They're being used as economic development tools and read really by anyone. And so more than ever, planning now needs to be inspirational and legible. And we have noticed, too, that a lot of people have a tough time visualizing development potential, almost like a room without furniture. And so that's why I think 3D is important. Some of our early work, I think we always have been trying to push the envelope of planning graphics. So even before tools like SketchUp or CityEngine were around, we found a way to sort of integrate 3D into our plans. These images here from a zoning study we did for the city of Chicago. We identified the development potential under the city's new zoning ordinance. And so using ArcGIS base maps, we then brought them into Illustrator and sort of created these isometric drawings. And then all the calculations were done in Excel sort of manually. And so we did a block by block. We also did parcel by parcel. I'll just say that this process was extremely time consuming. I think the entire project took us about 800 hours worth of time. And today with tools like CityEngine, this whole project could be done in about a week. I was one of the early adopters of SketchUp way back when it was Atlas software, and I have to be honest, I'm not all that proud of some of our early 3D work, but I will say some of it was pretty cool, and I think we were still then pushing this sort of envelope. We were sort of craving a way to stay innovative with cutting-edge graphics and plans, and sometimes we just used ArcGIS footprints with some custom scripts to extrude buildings, and really just using 3D as a canvas for different types of artwork. And we did it for large areas and small areas, and it was really just to us an alternative to a base map. And in coming to learn basically 3D, I think we learned that you need a standardized workflow. The importance of a good angle or good view is critical. You need to know when and how to add detail, and sometimes you basically need to just build a Hollywood movie set, sort of looking at detailing what the camera can see and not necessarily all full size. So, and then the last thing, you should have a rich and organized library of entourage and other elements, including models and textures that you can integrate into your work. So our early work impressed some people, especially the people at SketchUp. They feature our firm on their website, and I'm one of 20 SketchUp pros that they offer around the country to different schools and institutions for me to show how SketchUp can be used in the field of planning. And later this month, some folks from SketchUp are coming to our office for me to produce some tutorial videos. So we use 3D for base maps and development visualizations. This example is sort of a mix. The base is sort of off in the background, and those little black dots on there, we're highlighting some development potential. And the next example in Traverse City, again, just some real simple blocking with 3D inside of a massing model, just to show the development potential and site layout for different opportunity sites within a community. And then we take it to a more detailed level, like our work in Flint, Michigan, as part of the Imagine Flint Master Plan, where we use 3D to help the community visualize the different place types that make up the city of Flint. And so while Flint has sort of fallen on some hard times, we had to show them how they could use some of the vacant lots within their neighborhoods to establish a green neighborhood. So where there are vacant lots, we illustrate urban gardens and some of the other characteristics that we define that would define a green neighborhood. And then we also show them how you can transform a green neighborhood into a traditional neighborhood with no vacant lots. So if there's investment in the green neighborhoods, it could transform into a traditional neighborhood. And so 3D helped us sort of tell a real compelling story to the city of Flint. So generating our 3D scenes, it can be complex. So I'll just run through what our workflow looks like. In the past, and almost really today, we still do detailed site reconnaissance. We visit the sites, we take pictures. We identify a preliminary list of issues and opportunities. We start with some initial sketches. We refine the sketches. And this is now in the past. We would produce a base map in SketchUp. We'd do some simple massing. We'd add some additional detail. And then we'd render and export the drawings. And just to walk you through one example, this is a site that's on the water. It's filled with construction equipment that's for sale and for lease. The road to the left is a gateway to a beautiful city park. And in essence, the site had a ton of potential and was an eyesore to the community. So they asked us to visualize what this site could be. So just sketching on top of aerial photographs, we came up with some different alternatives. We refined the sketches, again, working towards a pre-3D layout. And we sent something like this to our client for approval to proceed, because once we get into the 3D work, it can be time-consuming. So we build on top of that sketch. We add the buildings and parking. And only once I think we're comfortable with the site layout do we start to add detail into the buildings and then some of the entourage like cars and people. And then in this example, we rendered it with shader light. We also use a rendering engine called V-Ray or Twilight. And so we take this export, and then we just polish it up in Adobe Illustrator. We add notes like street names. And this was prepared as a poster exhibit, put inside the City Hall to help sell the community and build public support for this development project. So this past workflow, as it relates to time commitments, I've sort of laid out a bar chart here where we think we spend most of our time. So the site reconnaissance, preliminary issues, initial sketches, and the sketch refinement are all done pretty quickly. The SketchUp base, you start to get a little time. The massing of the sort of the context and the contextual environment of the model is also time consuming. Adding the detail, though, is where we lose most of our time and where most of the time is spent. And then finally, the rendering and exporting. And with rendering, it's more of a machine tie-up than it is a time suck for our employees, but it's still sort of taking away from the potential of our office. So we introduced City Engine into our workflow about a year and a half ago. And what our workflow looks like now with City Engine is the site reconnaissance, preliminary issues and opportunities, initial sketches, and sketch refinement still take place. For the base map, we're using City Engine for our base map. The simple massing is City Engine. We're adding detail into our models with City Engine. And then while we sometimes use V-Ray or Twilight Render to render, City Engine exports are sometimes good enough for us to use in our plans and reports. And where we're seeing the time savings here, really with that base mapping or building the base model, we're saving about 50% of the time. The simple massing, we have about an 80% time saving. We're quickly able to just generate contextual massing models of our sites really quickly in City Engine. Adding detail, we save a ton of time through the different CGA scripts, adding detail to the models, then the rendering and exports. So you can see there, City Engine is really helping us save a lot of time. So we started with City Engine by sort of dipping our toe in the pool. We didn't jump right in. We wanted to sort of see how we could best use it in our workflow. This example here, we relied City Engine on really just for the simple massing. So those little white homes that make up the context for this town center, we added things like roof forms and random heights to give it a little more realism, and that was all done inside of City Engine. In this example here in West Bloomfield, Michigan, for their town center, we use CityEngine to generate the buildings, not a lot of detail, but one of the things we're able to extract from CityEngine and the reporting feature was the gross leasable areas of these buildings. One of the things we have assembled over the years is an extensive 3D component library. Some of them we've purchased from websites like FormFots, others we've drawn out, like these homes that we produced in SketchUp. And we've started to integrate these models into CityEngine and have a lot of good results. For this assignment here, we're doing a zoning ordinance and using CityEngine to help visualize the zoning. So the light green is the rear yard, the purple is the front yard setback, the red would be the side yards, and the greens is the park. And sort of the extruded yellow would be the building envelope that would be permissible where a home could be built. And while the client loved this, one of the steps, we took the step a little further, replacing those building envelopes with our SketchUp models. And inside of CityEngine, we're able to basically toggle from simple masses into a richer 3D environment. And we had some fun with this one. I think we added some additional details like cars, sidewalks, streetlights, and then even some random items in the backyards like trampolines and swimming pools. The current tool that we're using now with CityEngine is saving us a huge amount of time. We have a detailed 3D model building generator. And in the last year and a half, I've become quite fluent in CGA, which is the programming language for CityEngine. It was a steep learning curve, but the rules that come packaged help us speed it up definitely. And so with some background in coding, you can really jump into CityEngine. And so what we're able to do now is just take a building footprint and toggle between simple types of colors. We're able to go into more detailed. We can change land uses. And whenever we change the toggles, we're seeing immediate results in the 3D model. We can change things like eave heights, land uses. So an office building would have just windows, where if it was multifamily above retail, we start to add things like balconies and patio doors. We can change the width of a retail storefront, the awnings of the storefront. We can change the angle, the height, the valance, all the different detail in here, and then we can export these models into our into the rest of our models and basically integrate these detailed 3D models that we're generating in now minutes and integrate them into whatever 3D program we're using to develop the scene for our clients. Some of the other things we're able to do on here is change building materials, and so we can toggle between different brick textures. We have accent textures, parapet textures, and it's all customized and to allow us to generate the types of models that we need. We can add transparency if we'd like, if we want to sort of see through a building. We can set the different types of window colors, the window types, the door types. And while it took a lot of investment and time to generate this custom code for us, it sort of paid itself back tenfold, and we continue to use it on almost a daily basis. Again, we make all the tweaks inside of CityEngine, and then we can do our direct export and bring it into SketchUp or 3D Studio Max, whatever we're using to create our scene. Recently, we prepared a downtown master plan for Carson City, Nevada. We helped them revitalize or prepare a plan to revitalize their downtown and an old casino site. The plan was prepared in CAD. We polished it up in Illustrator. And then we prepared a 3D perspective of the development using CityEngine and our 3D model generator. And you can see the buildings and the green spaces were all prepared very, very quickly in CityEngine, and they look great. And you can see another view of it here with the tech center and the office building and just the open space. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much and let you know that all of this work you can see on our website. It's in our portfolio on our website, and the URL is on the screen. So thank you very much. And yes. Brooks, back to you.
Thank you very much, Devin. Really, really fantastic work. And just before we move on, I'd like to pose the second question today. So do you have the data, expertise, resources to solve a problem for your firm, organization using 3D GIS? So go ahead and submit your answer. And Barbara, you'll have to let us know how the answers come in.
Yeah, so everyone's voting quickly, and I want to encourage folks while you're voting to go ahead and share those questions as you have them during the webinar, and we'll keep an eye on that. Great. So let's have a look-see here. 43% say no data and no expertise. How do we get started?
Okay.
And then coming in second place at 39%, data and resources, but not the right expertise. So, hey, they're in the right place. Thanks, everybody, for participating.
I think we can definitely help out there. So moving on, 3D is really at the heart of an essential planning and design process. And we just saw some great examples of using procedural modeling to decrease the time needed to visualize development potential, really reducing operational costs and improving the production pipeline, especially when it comes to 3D. Design iteration is really at the core of geodesign. This process is very important, and empowering this process allows us to iterate very quickly, and this is something our software does very well. And with procedural modeling, like you saw in Devin's example, it allows us to consider different 3D proposals and report vital information during the process, like floor area ratio or even the predicted number of occupants. By easily comparing physical designs of multiple proposed design scenarios, we can better understand the future impacts, both positive and negative. And by using web scenes and web maps, which we'll get to in the second half of our talk today, we can easily prepare and present information about proposed developments and actually enable comments about the designs and allow those to be collected in a way that's transparent and trackable. This also enables the planner to effectively manage the planning review process. We can review comments from the public, as is the case in many legally mandated public comment periods. This feedback can be provided back to the decision makers, back to the planners who are doing their iteration. So we can actually make use of this feedback. And collectively, these comments can be analyzed spatially to better understand not only who said what, but also where and what they were referring to. So you'll notice a clear division in this conceptual diagram here between back office and front office capabilities, where the front office is really designed for personnel with little to no experience with GIS, and it's about providing a destination that's focused on easy to use, on-demand availability, and performance, and you'll see an example of one of these apps today. And when you make an information product or an app sticky or engaging, it doesn't require a specialist to stand over the shoulder of senior management. They will just use it every day. We see this across planning authorities and private firms alike. So we can really start to improve the communication and engage with key stakeholders and the public. And there are over 150 apps, and this list continues to grow. And I just have to say, if you had to build 150 apps on your own, think of the time and resources involved. So this is a great value that you already have available to you if you have ArcGIS Online. If you aren't taking advantage of these app templates, I'd definitely make a note to go investigate them. And we've seen customers take a single one of these apps and configure it in multiple different ways to serve their different needs. And to talk a little bit more about this app ecosystem and how it can be leveraged, I'd like to hand it over to our second guest today, Robert Kain. He's GIS manager at PlaceWorks, and also, I should mention, the Geodesign practice lead there. So over to you, Robert.
Thanks, Brooks. Yeah, as Brooks mentioned, I'm the GIS manager at PlaceWorks and the team lead for the Geodesign initiative we have going on. A little bit about PlaceWorks. Like Devin's firm, PlaceWorks is an urban planning firm. We have about 120 employees and 6 offices throughout California. And so what do? We do community planning, urban design, landscape architecture, environmental services, economics, school facilities planning, and GIS, all with a focus on sustainability of the built environment. So geodesign has many definitions. Here at PlaceWorks, we like this definition of geodesign that came out of a talk at the 2013 Geodesign Summit. It really resonated with us and the way that we work. Geodesign is an iterative design method that uses stakeholder input, geospatial modeling, impact simulations, real-time feedback to facilitate holistic designs and smart decisions. planning is an iterative process, and geodesign is this design workflow that supports this iterative process. We are drawn to this idea of geodesign and started to ask ourselves how this framework fits our planning practice. These are the questions that we asked ourselves. How can land use planners and designers use geodesign tools to measure and evaluate the sustainability of the built environment? And what are the technological tools that support geodesign? So with these questions in mind, we started to formulate workflows and started developing tools to incorporate geodesign practices and methodologies across all of our practice areas. So here are several of the geodesign-based tools that we are actively developing. So the first is GreenScore. GreenScore was PlaceWorks' first foray into geodesign. What is GreenScore, you may ask? Well, GreenScore is our approach and methodology for measuring and evaluating the sustainability of the built environment. It provides a qualitative and quantitative assessment of socioeconomic and environmental factors that help us illustrate how the built environment affects sustainability. Some of the key features of our GreenScore is it incorporates 70 indicators, specially selected indicators divided amongst 11 focus areas, provides assessment of diverse topics, can be adapted to the client's needs, and can model both existing and future conditions as well as multiple development scenarios. Another tool that we started looking at is story maps, and Brooks had mentioned story maps a little earlier in the discussion. We're looking at these story maps as a tool to extend the public participation and input in our outreach efforts for our general plans, specific plans, and our planning practice. And this focuses on that stakeholder input component of the geodesign process. What you see here in this slide is a city tour application we created for the City of Menlo Park's general plan update. It was a city tour map that was developed during the stakeholder community tour, where we take the stakeholders around the city to talk about some of the issues or the areas within the city that the city wants to study during the general plan update process. And during this tour, using Snap to Map and Esri tool, we were able to create a story map. And with this story map, we were able to provide it to those individuals, those stakeholders that weren't able to participate in the formal tour, and allowed them the ability to do a self-guided tour and submit input and commentary regarding the issues of concern. This final map was actually published in the Connect Menlo General Plan Update website and incorporated into a mobile planning application. The key features that we focus on this was to extend the stakeholder input function and to gain insight from a broader audience, and that was the key, the broader audience. There was no programming required for this. This was all built off of tools that Esri provided. The next tool that we started looking at as far as building geo-design-centric tools was this notion of a mobile planning application. It's sort of the progression of our tools focused on the stakeholder input component of geodesign. And these mobile planning applications are digital engagement tools. And they were developed to expand the reach of community engagement and provide a sense of community connectedness and pride. They act as information portals and engagement platform that allow stakeholders to learn more about the city, post issues and ideas important to the community via a word wall, post suggestions spatially and non-spatially. We're still working on that, where you can actually tag an area within the city and create a comment. Participate in those interactive walking tours that I previously mentioned, and actually we're in the process of actually having, while you're on those tours, actually have a geo-awareness or a geo-trigger that allows you to be prompted with additional questions. And of course, create community-generated story maps, having that actual stakeholders actually create their own story using the story map application. These applications, this application, mobile planning application, used ArcGIS Online, story maps, and a third-party mobile application development platform. There was some limited program required, but again, we're not a software firm, we're a planning firm, so it was a pretty straightforward process. The next solution that I want to talk about is custom ArcGIS web application. This is pulling from that impact simulations and real-time feedback component of geodesign. And we've started to develop these interactive web-based applications. For the city of Menlo Park general plan update, we created this interactive web-based tool that demonstrates the impacts of land use changes. This tool right here that you see here allows comparison of potential effects of different possible future land uses on 4 key indicators, right? So the city of Menlo Park was concerned about traffic, peak hour traffic generation, job creation, water consumption, and of course revenue to the city. The purpose of this simple tool was to provide a sense of how different uses affect key indicators differently. So the way that this application works is by clicking on the bubble areas on the plan, that removes their contribution or their either land use contribution to the key factors, and selecting and toggling them on and off, you'll see the indicator bar graph pivot based on those land uses that are active or inactive. This tool was developed with Esri's professional service division, and it can be hosted on any website. Doesn't require an ArcGIS Online account to use, only to develop it, because the base map is hosted on ArcGIS Online. And the app leverages web maps, like I said, on ArcGIS Online, and also application templates. Minor JavaScript programming was required to get this customized to fit into the City of Menlo Park's website. And finally, GeoPlanner, and this is the one we're really excited about, and we've really been focusing our efforts as of late on developing tools. Again, these applications pull from that iterative design process and real-time feedback component of geodesign. And a little bit about GeoPlanner. GeoPlanner for ArcGIS is a browser-based web application that supports land-related planning and design activities. It's built on top of ArcGIS Online, and it's offered as a premium app in the Esri marketplace. We started developing scenario planning tools that allow for community stakeholders and decision makers to take an interactive role in the scenario planning. No longer this kind of black box where the firm goes back and do some land use scenarios and bring back some outcomes. We can actually sit down with the client, the people with the institutional knowledge, and actually work through scenarios. We built 2 applications thus far on this platform: a sea level rise vulnerability assessment and mitigation tool for the city of Benicia, and a land use alternative scenario modeling tool for Menlo Park. And that's what you see here on the screen. This tool was developed for the general plan update for Menlo Park, and in Menlo Park they're focusing on the development activities in their M2 planning area, and it's shown here with the black boundary. In this area, there's a big tech buildup. Actually, this is the headquarters of Facebook is located here, up in that upper right-hand corner dark blue area. That's the existing Facebook campus, and to the southwest, in that dark blue area, that's the expansion, headquarters expansion that's currently being constructed as we speak. Again, as I previously mentioned, Menlo Park wants to focus on job creation, peak hour traffic volumes, water demand, and revenue. This application, and we'll show a demonstration here shortly, basically allows you to sketch up a land use scenario and actually see real-time feedback as it relates to these 4 key indicators. And one of the key components for Menlo Park is also they're a coastal community, and they're located in the Bay Area, and they're concerned with sea level rise. So we actually do an assessment of the performance of the land use. As you see here, this is the application, and we have a blank land use scenario. As I switch over to the base conditions, you can see the land use summary populate, and the metrics also populate based on the land use scenario. Here you see all the indicators. You can show them in full screen or cycle through them. As I switch back to the sketch planning scenario, I can pick a land use and start to sketch. As I start to sketch and complete that sketch, you'll start to see the metrics update. So as I'm sketching around, as soon as I complete that sketch, you'll see the indicator at the bottom there update. So here it's updated, and I can cycle through the different metrics, look at them all simultaneously, and it will show the land use in the display. I can switch between scenarios and actually copy features from other scenarios that I have into my new active scenario. And that you see here, as I'm selecting the Facebook headquarters, copying that, switching back to the sketch plan, and pasting that land use polygon into there. So you can quickly build from previous scenarios, sort of that iterative sketch planning process. You can actually alter those land uses. So you'll see here, as I copy and complete my sketch plan, I'll get these updated metrics. And I'm going to switch over here to a final sketch plan. We can further refine that sketch plan by going in and actually selecting some of these land uses and actually changing the land use designation, and actually see the metrics update as that change is made. I'm going to go ahead and switch that just to show. I'm going to switch that to go ahead and I'm going to switch it to a commercial use, and you'll see how the revenue is adjusted accordingly. So once we kind of go through this process, I'm going to go ahead and switch it back to Office. And we have a scenario that we like. We can start to look at them against other scenarios. So we can simultaneously review two different scenario plans simultaneously and look at their indicators side by side. So I'm going to go ahead, see, as I pan one map, the other one is synced with that. So I'll bring up the dashboard, pivot to both of the revenue metrics, and you can see here now, as I bring up the dashboard, this is comparing the two scenario plans based on our predefined metrics. And again, you can, as you pan around and look at different areas, you can get a real-time feedback of what that section of the plan is doing as far as metrics impact. And again, like I had mentioned before, the final issue that was of concern for the city of Menlo Park was the sea level rise. So as I turn on the sea level rise layer, this assessment layer, we'll be able to bring up the dashboard and see how sea level rise will impact this planning area on a land use level. So here's the land use summary, shows the mix of land uses and how that is impacted. So that's sort of the tool, a little brief demonstration of the tool that we have developed. And where are we going? We're in the process of creating this comprehensive civic engagement platform that incorporates all the Geodesign tools that I have featured here today. We're continuing to focus on refining and expanding the functionality of our sketch planning tool, continuing to add indicators and methodologies to screen score, creating story map-based surveys, incorporating GeoTrigger into our mobile planning app, and developing site suitability models for incorporation into GeoPlanner. So again, it's sort of that notion of geodesign is this iterative process, and with our tools, it's sort of an iterative process also. Thank you, and back to you, Brooks.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Robert. That's really some amazing work. And yeah, just to reiterate it, but you're not a software company, so.
Nope.
So we'll go ahead and have our third question here, just so we get a feel from the audience. Go ahead and launch that question. Did the last example resonate with you? So just go ahead and answer yes or no, and should be easy.
We're getting an overwhelming yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, so these tools are pretty useful, I guess, to many of you. So really the next step then. So
Absolutely.
how do you get started with geodesign? So first you need three things: problems to solve, or a project or a pilot, willingness to start, and if you're listening now, you've already taken that step, and the understanding of where to begin. And so we'll actually walk through that piece to help you get started. And we really believe every organization can leverage geodesign, no matter how big or small the organization is, or how technically savvy. We offer 3 steps to guide you through the process. So the first step is all about starting out with the basics. What do we need to know about the region or neighborhood in which we're working? Existing trends and challenges can be defined as a set of data layers or indicators. This could come from a whole variety of different sources. State, county, Esri actually curates a lot of different content, such as base maps, demographic layers, landscape layers. Actually, our demographic layers are the same ones used by the TV industry. So pretty rich data. And really what you're doing is building that existing conditions lens that's necessary so we have a base to work from. And Web GIS, ArcGIS Online particularly, represents a fundamentally different pattern, which means we can start to integrate these different data streams dynamically using web services and web maps. And this isn't only 2D, it's also 3D, it's also imagery, and this really enables everyone in the organization to have easy access to the critical information that can be used within your project. So bringing this data together is key in order to understand how to propose change. And by having that meaningful contextual information at hand, we're able to ultimately design smarter. So the second step here is all about leveraging that data within your current workflows. Add further, further optimize your work by utilizing some of the tools that we've seen here today, like City Engine and GeoPlanner. We can start to efficiently visualize development potential and even measure the impact of those proposals. So part modeling, part analyzing. And 3D is definitely no longer a luxury, and we can start to take advantage of LiDAR data, existing 2D GIS data, third-party 3D models coming from, you name it, SketchUp, 3D Max. And in the end, it's all about supporting your communication objectives. We can really start to publish the 2D data easily, the 3D data as well to the web, and demonstrate change alongside the metrics like jobs or housing density, etc. So now that you know a design will work or not, it's really about making sure you have the right design. So everything is and will have to be connected to the context. The third and final step is all about publishing this good work. So essentially to tell the story of the planning or design that's taking place, enabling the conversation. In most cases, it's applying the wisdom of the crowd, and that crowd is the public. So defining and supporting digital methods of both internal engagement, but also public feedback it's really a necessary step in today's design process. But I'm not talking about just sharing a PDF document. They're nice, especially when you print them, but with the solution we're presenting with ArcGIS, you get this gallery of 2D and 3D templates that you can run through the browser. So I'm not a programmer similar to Robert, but I can publish this out, tailored to the executive, to the public, or to the person out in the field to really do the job that needs to get done. And story maps alone, that's one of the templates, a group of templates here, but there are 12 of these, and we'll actually take you through one of those. So just before I start the demonstration, I wanted to hear one more time from the audience. So we'll go ahead and launch the fourth question. Do you see your organization leveraging this type of Web GIS and story maps to basically tell your story, tell the design story? So go ahead and answer, and how does it look?
It's looking great. Looks like an overwhelming yes across the crowd.
Okay,
so,
great.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, so I'd like to move forward with a high-level demonstration of the new Web 3D tools that really let you tell that story in the third dimension. And I should also mention that what I'll show you today is also going to be made available to you after the webinar. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and launch ArcGIS Pro. ArcGIS Pro is a fast, modern, it's really the latest in our desktop software. So as I launch this application, you'll see the maps will come in, and we're going to take a look at not only the 3D mapping capabilities it offers, but how we can easily publish the 3D and 2D content to the cloud. So what you see here is a 2D map. We definitely didn't get rid of our 2D map capabilities. What we're doing is we're not only utilizing the 2D maps like we used to, but we can actually take this type of data and we can simply copy it. So we'll go ahead and copy it here and bring up a 3D map. So Pro actually supports 2D and 3D. You can actually dock these windows side by side, use multiple monitors, link them. But what we're really able to do is 3D enable a lot of data that isn't traditionally 3D. So here I just pasted the 2D data in my 3D map here, and you'll notice that there's a terrain height map as well. We actually offer that as a curated service. It's terrain for the entire globe, at least at 30-meter resolution, and that includes everywhere. So it goes down to about 3-meter resolution here in San Diego, and what we can do is start to overlay on top of it. So 2D data is great, but I'm going to show you sort of the steps to 3D enable that. So based on, say, the tree points here, we see that there's a species. We can actually start to take attributes within this type of data and start to apply procedural symbology that you would otherwise see in CityEngine to our scene. So we can use those data attributes to drive the 3D model. In this case, we're looking at a species of tree, and we're symbolizing it with a particular, I think we're just using genus in this case. With building footprints, there's really a spectrum of detail. We can take footprints themselves and start to apply rules to extrude and subdivide floors from these 2D footprints. You'll see them streaming in. Here it's just white, but we can actually start skinning these with the attributes as well. So we can actually start to look at the properties here. I'll show you. If we go into the layers, you'll see the rule just like you would in CityEngine with all the parameters. But rather than unknown typology, we'll actually link that to, say, usage. So by linking that attribute to a data field, we can hit apply and have those buildings regenerate with that skin of usage on those buildings. So it's really powerful in not only showing the rendered city, but really showing in 3D space data that has to do with that city. So going from, going through with the spectrum from geotypical to geospecific, from building footprints, you're really going into photogrammetry and using the geometry itself that's derived from obliques or LiDAR. With these types of volumes, we can very accurately start to do solar analysis and different viewshed analysis. And so these models can come from a variety of sources. We have partners like CyberCity 3D and Pictometry and PLW that offer these models. From there, it's really about leveraging textured models if you actually need that realistic view. And once you actually have that base map in place, we can really start to work with it. So we can not only have buildings and trees, but we can start to overlay aspects of the city that are important for the design process. So here we're looking at public works, a lot of the piping that's going on underground. Just to show you something really quickly, we can actually take the trees, for instance, and using the rule, we can actually turn on root volumes, right? So if I hit apply, it's going to regenerate those trees, and we can actually assess root volume growth to the pipes, for instance. So this is really all about symbolizing in 3D this type of data. So this is all about data management. And what we can do now that we have this very rich scene, we can start to actually analyze in that scene. So we can run a geoprocessing model that looks at solar analysis, for instance. And it's important because when you start proposing build-outs of, say, this parking lot next to the Petco Stadium, being able to understand the change is key. So we can start to rerun that analysis on our design and really understand that, that impact spatially. So with this type of 3D scene, it's nice to have it in the browser, and you've seen some early editions of this type of Web 3D technology from CityEngine with CityEngine web scenes. What we can do now is simply go to the Share button in Pro and click Web Scene. And by clicking the Web Scene button here, it opens up a little sharing console here where you actually enter in your summary, your tags, who you're sharing it to. And because I'm signed into in this case, I'm using my server, I'm able to publish this entire scene with all of its content directly to the server. So to give you an idea of what that looks like once I push share, I'll go ahead and open up the browser. So within the cloud, we call it ArcGIS Online, you'll see a number of items come up depending on where you share it. If you're using a nice folder structure, you can share it directly into folders. But what we're able to do is start to look at the scene afterwards. So we can go ahead and go to the item page here and launch that San Diego scene that I just uploaded earlier. And you can see the height map is streaming in, the trees are streaming in, and you'll see some buildings streaming in shortly as well. So very quick rendering of this type of three-dimensional data. We can also start to look at shadows, so shadow impact, turn on diffused shadows if you're wanting to render it a little bit more. But this type of data is just seamless, and it doesn't really require any particular browser. You can just launch it, and it will stream directly into your desktop. So this is great, and it's great to actually start to overlay data on this type of scene. I mean, if we wanted to, we can look up an Esri curated data set that actually looks at, well, actually let's use one of mine. We can browse my data, for instance, and we can look at, say, the development potential in San Diego, for instance. So live demonstration, but that should be coming through. Might take a second, but once that data is in there, we can start to fashion these slides that take us through the story to particular spots in the city, and this is really great for presentations. And so with this, we can really start to formulate these apps on top of it. So going to my content again, I can, rather than create a map or a scene, I can actually create an app. And I can use one of these templates we were talking about earlier. So I'll go ahead and, let's see, I like the story map journal. That's one that I've built out for you guys on the call. So we'll go ahead and choose the story map journal. We'll call it San Diego. We won't add any tags for now. We'll just do it quickly. And once I hit done, it launches a configuration, basically a data management tool. So we can decide what kind of panel we want on our app. We can then label our app, you know, San Diego development. And we have the main stage, which we can make the web scene, stretch it to the entire extent of the browser. We can even add our text right into this floating panel. So when we do that, we can start to add sections. We can start to basically tell our story and work independently of scale even with this type of app. So I've actually gone ahead and I've built one of these out. I've actually used the panel with HTML, so I could put in an opt-in form to get comments back from the public. And I've gone ahead and added different sections here that navigate to different bookmarks in the map, right? So this is all just set up, easy to configure. And once we click View Live, you can actually share it with the public publicly. And we'll actually hand this off to you guys to take a look at as well after the webinar. But what I've done here is actually take us through those 3 steps that I was talking about earlier, right? So step 1, mapping the current conditions, you know, transforming that data to 3D, leveraging LiDAR, and really combining different data sets together. Understanding, you know, growth predictions, so there's that development potential. We can very quickly enable this type of legal data like zoning envelopes in 3D space. Step 2, it's really working within that data, and we can start to design and visualize different scenarios. These models can be done in City Engine, in SketchUp. It doesn't really matter. You can even use Revit, right? So we can start to take in all this data for development review, also for facility management purposes, and so we can really start to not only you know, understand that building in context, we can understand the context before you even drop the building in there. So if we wanted to look at that area right next to the Petco Stadium in terms of solar radiation as well as wind in this case, when we actually propose a set of a build-out scenario for that area, we can rerun that analysis and understand, the heat island effect in this case. Or like this small video shows, we can even start to do view shed analysis, which is also very popular if you want that view into the Petco Stadium. And then it's all about engaging with stakeholders in the public, being able to share this out like I'm about to share this out with you, being able to let them take a go at navigating in here. As you can see, the scene is actually live, so you can go ahead and navigate around. And if you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with me. My email will be at the last slide, but we'll also be getting in touch anyway. So without further ado, I'd like to show you really where we're going with this technology with the last couple minutes we have. Being released this month is actually the JavaScript API with the 3D components. So those kind of templates are nice, but we're looking at focus templates now for geodesign. So here's one of those examples, actually a pilot. So we can start to look at, say, solar potential in this window. We can start to look at the rear view in this window. So this type of web development in 3D is going to really be made possible through these applications, and it's really powerful stuff. Imagine a presentation when you'd have 10 different versions of a scenario. I mean, it's hard to do that in 2D as it is if you're not using these tools, but we're really talking about just doing it in 3D to begin with, and start comparing these and start looking at them in comparison to each other, not only in terms of content, but how they impact the surroundings. So with that, I'd really like to open it up for the fifth question. For really the first 10 people, we'll offer a free 15-minute consulting slot to just discuss your project. So if you do have further questions, or if you have a project in mind, just go ahead and click yes, and we'll definitely be in touch. And we'll send a follow-up email with that story map that we were showing here in the demonstration, as well as a link to schedule a meeting. If you don't already know, the Esri UC is coming up at the end of July, I think the 21st. So we'll actually be there. We'll have a gigantic 3D island in the expo hall, so definitely stop by. And there you'll actually get a preview of ArcGIS Earth actually as well, which is it's a desktop application that is up and coming. So feel free to get in touch. We'll actually now open it up for questions. So Barbara, if you wanted to take over the controls again.
Sure. So we'll give folks just another moment or two to continue to give a yes or no if they're interested there. And then, so we're just going to dive right in. Devin, let's start with you. How much training is needed to work a software engine like City Engine?
Well, City Engine ships with a bunch of basically rule files, and you can peek inside sort of the code and I think come up to speed relatively quickly. Certainly it helps if you have any type of programming background, but between either a code view or even a visual hierarchy viewer, you can sort of see how City Engine is generating everything. So I would say the learning curve is not as steep as you might think, and certainly though once you do get it, you're able to quickly move through all the different features much more quickly than any other software I've ever used. I mean, it's incredible.
Oh, that's great news for a lot of folks. Robert, a question for you. What's the timeline for an app like Menlo Park?
About a week to 10 business days. It all hinges on getting the input from the client. Establishing how to quantify the metrics. With Menlo Park, the trip generation. We got the trip generation rates from the city. Per square footage of commercial, or per unit of residential, or per house hotel room. So once we have that data, we can about a week to 10 days.
That's great. So Brooks, a question over to you. I know we had a lot of folks here that this is really new to them. Is there a City Engine training manual, some material available for folks?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have different resources available. I mean, if you go to the YouTube channel, which is City Engine TV, you'll find some essential skills that will actually get you started building out your first 3D model. Not only the context, but it'll actually take you through working with it in terms of urban design, building out rules. So there's actually some tutorials there on the CGA code specifically, looking at zoning envelopes, looking at building out little building rules to get started. So if you go on YouTube, just check it out. You should be able to get started. But other than that, feel free to contact me. We can provide you some workshop material as well that you can have at your desk and print out.
Oh, that's terrific. And so how can folks use ArcGIS 3D extension in conjunction with CityEngine?
Yeah, so basically CityEngine is a content creation tool, and it does a really great job at manipulating 3D. I mean, it's sort of like the Photoshop for 3D, right? You're able to very easily clean up data, model data, and then CityEngine does a really great job at actually exporting that data back into a geodatabase, back out as FBX, which is a popular Autodesk format, back out as Collada OBJ. So we can actually take that into Pro, which is really what we're talking about as a data management, really the core GIS offering that Esri has. And from there, it's about publishing all of this data all at once to one scene. So all of these tools speak the same language. We even speak the language of other tools that aren't necessarily Esri. So
that's good. It's important to be multilingual these days, right?
Definitely.
So, data question for you on the attribute data for the 3D scenes. Are they embedded in objects or in a database such as Oracle or SQL Server?
Yeah, so the data that I was showing that work with the CityEngine rules, those have to be on the object itself. So the rule is written to actually look for certain fields within the data set. So if you have a field on your polygon, on your footprints that show that the field is labeled height, then the CityEngine rule that has that field height is going to try and pull out all those unique values. So it's important to match up those data, the data model to the rule, and really take all of that database information and port it over to the object itself.
Okay, very good. So I'm assuming that this is true, but can ArcGIS Pro support LiDAR?
ArcGIS Pro will support LiDAR soon. I believe right now does not support the last format quite yet, but that's something we're definitely releasing probably in the next couple of months. As well with the web scenes, this type of 3D scene is eventually going to support this type of point cloud visualization. Right now you can easily create a mesh and publish it up there to start visualizing the LiDAR as its imagery format.
And then just a couple more things here, and we'll give folks back to their day, but we wanted to be sure and work in a few of their questions today. So what platforms support the current web scenes?
Yeah, the current web scenes, like the one I just showed, they actually run on a technology called Web GL. And so about 6 months ago, iOS supports WebGL, so it might not open on your iPhone, but at least on your desktop, it should work within almost every browser. And the size of a web scene will still matter, similar to the CityEngine web scenes before. So if you're trying to run a large scene with a lot of content in there, you might have some performance issues, but really this type of streaming 3D is the response to the need for that high-end performance when it comes to serving out 3D and WebGL. So we really see a lot of use coming out of this new 3D services.
It's just amazing to see what's going on with all these services and just really where it's going. Pretty amazing. We are really out of time, and appreciate everyone being here today. Folks, we have been keeping track of all of your questions, and I know that Brooks and the other folks there are eager to be in touch with you. So don't worry, they will get in touch with you. Do keep an eye on your email because we have been recording today, and we have those resource links for you. So we've got that cool map journal story map to share with you, along with some other things. Also, remember that if you need an attendance certificate, you can request those after the webinar to work towards your GISP. Thanks again, Brooks, Devin, Robert. It was amazing to see the cool things going on. Really appreciate you sharing your expertise, and hope that everyone will join us again for another webinar. Gentlemen, thanks. Go have a great day.